Easier for a banking cartel to buy the state of New York in, say, 20 years. Such a problem leans heavily upon the observation of data, of wartime espionage, and many types of psychological testing, but crude mathematical models, algorithms, etc., can be devised, if not to predict, at least to predetermine these events with maximum certainty. What does not exist by natural cooperation is thus enhanced by calculated compulsion. Human beings are machines, levers which may be grasped and turned, and there is little real difference between automating a society and automating a shoe factory. These derived values are valuable. It is necessary to use a current table of human values for computer analysis. All right. So I'll start back up here. So put all this in context. Such a problem leans heavily upon the observations and data of wartime espionage and many types of psychological testing where crude mathematical models, algorithms, etc. can be devised, if not to predict, at least to predetermine these events with maximum certainty. What does not exist by natural cooperation is thus enhanced by calculated compulsion. Human beings are machines, levers which may be grasped and turned, and there is little real difference between automating a society and automating a shoe factory. These derived values are valuable. It is necessary to use a current table of human values for computer analysis. These values are given the true measure rather than US dollars, since the latter is unstable, being presently inflated beyond the, I think that's one of the missing pages, because understand this is redacted material, so some of the stuff is out. But anyway, I want to show you the section where it talks about this how you use the paper trail, or your checking accounts, your credit cards, etc. They build a dossier on everything, any movement that you make. That's why they want you to get them, not because they mean anything else other than that. They're really for data collection. Because what they don't want you to know is that all so-called bills that you get aren't really bills, they're statements on the account of the Global World Trust that actually they're supposed to pay, not you, because you're under occupation. This is the reason why they won't tell you about 95.A, United States Code of Law, because the United States is a corporation and it's occupying us. They're actually supposed to discharge and set off all of your debts because you're under occupation. And so they don't really send you bills because they're really already paid. So they send you statements of account. All right? And whatever you give them in the private commercial paper that they call Federal Reserve notes, that's accepted as dedonus or gift. Because it's really bookkeeping on your labor, because it's not money. It's private commercial paper for registering the energy output that you make as a machine. They can see how much you move of your energy. That's why they must promote that it's money. Scholars know it's not money, but the chattel or cattle must believe that it's money. So when you see Europeans, lighting their cigars with 100 notes, and you be wondering why, because they already know it's worthless. It's just for control purposes. Because the masses aren't allowed to have money. You see? Because it's private commercial paper, it's for bookkeeping. This is why they won't teach people what money really is. Because you're actually cut off from your estate. And this is, again, why they don't want this information out, because the illusion that people have is what keeps their power. As long as people are in the illusion, they're in that false matrix. And this is where you get parens patrae, Would corporate state claims be your mother and father? Yeah, that's what that means. I mean, they own you. And this is where the marriage certificate was set up by the daughters of the American Revolution to claim the eggs in the fallopian tubes. And they think it is a divine agreement with the Lord in heaven. No, it's the Lords of London. Yeah. So our people have been played on so many fronts that it's not even, to laugh at it would be, because it's just so miserable.
Is that why they say fruit of your womb when you're married? Is that why they say fruit of your womb when you get married and get the marriage license?
Well, the marriage license is really a permit from the Pope of Rome for the cattle to mate. And then the marriage certificate is a bank bond to the Lords of London, which is the second star. When you see 3 stars that you see in Washington, D.C., first star is the Vatican. Second star is London, District of London. Third star is Washington, D.C., that they moved from Philadelphia, the capital, in, I think it was 1890, that area. And they operate as a trinity operations for enforcing unum sanctum and the Spanish Inquisition in the Western Hemisphere. And so when people get married, the reverend's job is to tell them, is Lord Jesus in heaven, while he really got agreement with the Lords of London, where he gets his certificate from. And then he gets a kickback when he registers it downtown at the local vital statistics. Then they make a bond and send it to 55 Water Street. Then your children are already declared wards of the state even before they're born. They're already bought. And they say that the mothers sold them, which is a lie, but that's how they take the birth certificate. And the mothers are declared informants, which most of you all, know that.
And even in death certificate.
Yeah, and it still goes on even after the death. So what's happening is that we're talking the real politics, not what people believe. Unfortunate, but it's real. So the point of it is that you must understand that everything is bonded and everything is declared abandoned and it is held under the auspices of the Global World Trust. So this is another thing so that you understand the local politics. This is very important for you to understand. Now, the operations that were set up between the Moors and the deists was this. As the constitutional order. The de facto and the imposter order is and this that's when that was solidified. Now, you don't know the difference, and this is what's been in operation. Are we clear? So, as an example, under legitimate government, Delaware State Republic comes under this order. The state of Delaware comes under this order. And if you don't know the difference, you're already in trouble. Are we clear? So when you hear the state of anything, It's an imposter. This was overthrown May 10, 1861. In that 10-year span, they perfected the platform for that. And this is so that they would not have to honor the Constitution and the treaty. And this was the platform that institutionalized slavery in North America, of the Moors, and legitimized legally, not lawfully, Negro, black, color, Indian type stuff. And once you agreed to that, you lost your birthright.
Isn't that the organic?
Huh?
Is one considered organic?
Yeah.
Is one considered organic?
Yes, the United States with a small u is organic.
Right.
That would be de jure.
Okay.
The bottom would be de facto. So understand the difference, de jure, de facto. Real, imposter. So all politicians since 1861, May 10th, are impersonators. All of them. Federal and local are impersonators. Now you understand why you've been catching so much hell? Now, that's the real politics. Get the mic.
I had my grandson over and his friends over. They had stayed the night, and I had schooled them. I tested. I asked all three boys. I said, "Can you tell me which one is correct?" When I used the states, I said "of" and everything, and I had them thinking. And only one got it correct.
Yes. Now this is the deal. If you, and that's us clear, if you don't teach your children, they're done. Because what they plan to do is kill them off before they. This is what the GMOs are, you know, and the chemtrails, and the mercury in the shots they give them in schools. So it's for, you know, and then the chickens when they breed them and put that green stuff in their heads for making them grow fast. That's why they can sell chicken wings and stuff so cheap. But what they don't tell people, they feed them cancer. So they already know. It used to be like, you know, years ago, you might have, say 4 or 5 generations ago, you might have 1 out of 100 people have cancer. Now, every 1 or 2 people out of 2 got cancers. So keep this in mind. When you see a lot of these Europeans now talking stuff, they're trying to get back to the Republic. When you see the letters that the Pope has been doing lately, he's trying to get them back to the Republic. That's because the Manchurians are on them. Do you understand? All right. And the Asiatic nations of the world are starting to unite, and they're dumping UST bonds that have been based on us since the Civil War. That's their whole foundation of operations. They can't beat the beast because everything he's done with technology is a death machine. So the position that the Asiatic nations are taking is don't feed the dragon and he will die. And we're the only ones that keep them alive because we keep believing in them through the local spy houses, funding our own enslavement. Don't even know we're funding our own enslavement because we think it has something to do with Jesus and stuff, and it belongs to the Pope. You know, but the Pope is trying to do what, you know, whether he's being honorable or not, you know, he's telling you the history because he knows that you don't, you know. It's so like when our people tell our people the truth, they think it's made up. They think it's some kind of belief that's competing with their beliefs and everything. You can't, it's like talking to a brick almost. Yes. Give me the mic, please.
Just for clarity, can you expand on the benefit to the Manchurian for promoting the truth, or you know, to the?
You got to look at it. You got to look at it this way. You got to look at it this way. It's not just from the moral interest that we're all Asiatics, but the plan of the Inquisition was and is this: when the Moors fell, that's when all of the other Asiatic nations started falling. China or the Manchurians are one of the last nations that the Rothschilds have not conquered. So what they did, they created SARS and a few other diseases which are gene specific and unleashed them with the bird flus and everything on Chinese. You know, because the plan with the Inquisition and the silent weapons is to kill the firstborn. That's us. We're the first Asiatic because they're occupying our land. And then they're going to conquer everyone else. So that gave the Manchurians motivation above the moral principle to counter the Europeans because they're coming after them too. Are we clear?
Yeah.
So, and particularly when they released the bird flu and SARS and Ebola, all of which are patented, including, you know, what they're calling HIV is germ warfare. It doesn't exist in nature. None of that exists in nature. You know, but the people who don't understand politics thinks these are diseases that came off some green monkey in the woods somewhere. No, they were made in the laboratory in Langley, Virginia, and also in Atlanta, Georgia, disease control.
And the benefit to the Pope?
Huh?
The benefit to the Pope for coming clean? And...
Well, you consider this. The Manchurians, this is a general overview, factual overview. The Manchurians released approximately just below 7 million, it was roughly around 6.5 million perfected assassins on Earth planet as a countermeasure to European colonial operations, including on starting to dump UST bombs with the help of Russia, India, and other Asiatic nations, and the true American states in the South came together called the Mint Nations. They too joined forces to start dumping the UST bonds, which means they've been selling the bonds for all these generations that's on the backs of us. Our people are out to want us to think that they're US citizens, not knowing it means cattle stock. You understand? And then we keep fighting these wars for them against our own bloodlines around the world, not knowing our history. So it becomes a necessity, not only a moral issue for the Asiatic nations to come together and start counting European colonial operations. This was the position. It is agreed that the Europeans have multiple toys and death machines that are more advanced than they've exposed to the world, but also other nations have them too. So a lot of the technologies that the Europeans have been using to attack the rest of the world, you know, is not limited to them. They've just been more willing to use them, all right? So understand off-world technology is not new. So they put that out there, all right? Now, this was the agreement. We understand your Wolfowitz policy. The Wolfowitz policy is where with the European hegemony, which people who don't understand the European hegemony will call it white supremacy. The European hegemony is the Spanish Inquisition. Spanish Inquisition and Crusades, all right? They pretended that they ended it when they really didn't. And this is where they've been breaching the treaties, etc. And this is your latest operations or political operations to carry on the Spanish Inquisition against the Moors. All right, but to hide it, this is why it's called silent weapons, you see? So the Manchurian says, you take one, we'll take 10 for every one, see who lasts. And this is what's been going on. So the Europeans doing what they always do, they borrow from people and they murder them. Anybody try to wake the people up, they kill them off. You understand? The corporate states come in, put a bond on your land, and kill the family off. That's what they've been doing, converting your allodial estates into deeds and mortgages, particularly since 1913 with Woodrow Wilson as a countermeasure to no withdrawal aid. Once you understand real history, you understand what's going on today. So the Manchurians say, you understand that, now that 6.5 million is taken from a pool of over 20 million perfected assassins. So their position with the Europeans is, you take one because we know that's what you do. We'll take 10, see who lasts. And this is what's been going on for the last few years, including some of your bankers taking leaps with no parachutes. Some of them also from Russians. You know, so this is what's really going on. So negotiations are being made for these transfers. This is another reason why they were set with Trump taking over the corporate operatives, because he didn't come through the order. But yet, understand that he, just like Hillary, is still controlled by the Rothschilds. So don't, you know, and the Jesuits, so don't get that twisted. It's just that they need a more reasonable mind that's going to try to fix this thing, or they're going to start dropping like flies. Do you understand? And a lot of these earthquakes that you've been hearing all over the country ain't earthquakes. They're destroying underground cities that's been there for decades. They're military operations. They're just trying to keep it away from the public. Are we clear?
Yeah.
Now, understanding that you have holdouts, or you have rebellions amongst the ranks, you must understand why the Pope has to do what he's doing. You know, it's like this, when you're used to taking everybody else's life with no recourse, that's one thing. But it's another thing when you wake up one morning and discover that somebody got a mark on you that can take you out just like you've been taking everybody else out. And so after a while, that arrogance kind of tones down. If you get the point, this is actually what's going on. Are we clear? Now, the deal of it is, the Europeans' basic last vestige is the fact that we keep believing in them. In other words, we empower them. If we stop empowering them, the world will start getting into order more quickly. And so you must understand, and you must be aware that they're not your friend. And they're not, and that, you know, the idea that our people had that their vote counts and all that kind of stuff is one of the greatest fictions in the world. One of the greatest fictions in the world. Now, many of you already know this. Many of you already know this, but I want to say go into the Pope's letter a little bit, and this is redundant so that everybody, those of you're not aware of it, can be aware of it, because a lot of you may not be aware of what we're talking about when we talk about the Pope's letter. Now, and this is again for people who are delusional, you know, and keep having the opinion that their leader guys don't know this, and that some lawyer that they hired to try to protect their house from being foreclosed didn't know this and stuff like that. So this is a commentary, and we're only going to read a little bit of it, and then we'll go into the Pope's letter to Obama. The original and de jure Constitution, which is what I'm telling you. The original, so understand the concepts. The original and de jure Constitution for the United States of America, see that small U? At North America, having a Republican form of government set forth and established at Article 4, Section 4, stands as the supreme law of the land. That organic Constitution was altered by acts of misprision and was secretly overthrown and converted into a foreign, privately owned, and deemed for-profit corporation in the year 1871. See Act of Congress, 1871. That said misprision derived and foreign feudal law entity, born of treason, was styled as the United States Corporation Company, which is now commonly referred to as the U.S. democracy. Are we clear? Now you know, and we all know, that the average person throws these phrases around and think they're talking about legitimate government, and they're actually talking about impersonators and imposters. And they pay them to kill their families off. That's what the IRS payments are for. All right? The foreign and privately owned entity deceptively called created by acts of sedition and all its many states of entities. Those are the states of. All those are states of entities. They're what you call local operatives or outposts. Or its other licensed and associated corporate franchisees were and are ultimately and factually owned by the Vatican. Are we clear? Being members of the Roman Curia. So write that down so you be familiar. This is also whenever you're talking to any of these agents or agencies that keep claiming you owe this and owe that, and this tax and that tax, understand that they're members of the Roman Curia. Now, they're operating with the idea that you don't read, can't read, and don't know that the imposters and impersonators have been operating since 1871. Are we clear? And that you actually been funding the destruction of your own communities. Meaning they don't even have to pay for it, you pay for it. With tithe. Tithe is 10% Roman tax. Of course the tax is higher than that. But basically that's what it's for. Alright? Now, anyway. So they're being members of the Roman Curia. The politically and socially subdued truth and fact is actually the veiled foundation and source of the functioning jurisdictional powers that gave and still gives the Pope of Rome or the Vatican Bishopric the colorably valid and affirmable authority over the entity U.S. democracy, United States corporation, and also jurisdiction over those subordinate associated entities as expressed and executed via this impacting letter. So most of you have this, excuse me, but I want to go over that just to let you see. Now, that's where he's talking to his employee. Now, this was actually issued prior, but so that you don't get confused about people that are operating, in these agencies, etc. So you can see who these are issued to. So when you think that commercial mercenaries of all these categories don't know this or didn't know this just because they ain't talking to you, don't be naive. Issued to all members of the domestic police forces. That means all police have this. U.S. Marshal Service, they all have this. Provost Marshal, they all have this. Members of the American Bar Association and the American Armed Services, they all have this. These organic states of the Union known as the United States of America, major, exercising plenary civil power upon the land, hereby appoint General Carter F. Ham to lead and command the Grand Army of the Republic and its successors under the guidance of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and with their full support. So you must understand, at this point, the Pope is separating the corporation from the land because he knows that the people have the mentality of children and they're unable to do it because they've been trained for so many generations like cattle. So he's telling you directly, he's separating the United States corporation from the land. They're exercising plenary powers on the land. Are we clear? Now revert back to the King Alfred and understand what's being said here. Are we clear? Now, should it become necessary to suppress commercial mercenary forces, that's policemen and all this, they are commercial mercenaries. Our people think they're law officers. Operating under the guise of being federal government agencies, including but not limited to the Department of Homeland Security, the Federal Emergency Management Administration, the Internal Revenue Service, which you know is the IRS, see? The Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, ETC, General Hand shall assume immediate command and control of all armed forces and services owed to the United States of America, major, stationed in North America. See how I keep separating? Now, people who can't read and people who don't know history think that the United States is the land because they've been trained like cattle from childhood, which is why they're called minorities, because they have the mentality of minors. Anyway, so the United States of America major stationed in North America and shall join them under his command as the Grand Army Republic. All forces of air, land, and sea are to be employed. Now, I want you to pay attention to these different United States. It's very important. because those are shells thereafter. After the first one, they're corporate shells. Any cost or loss suffered as a result of deployment computer analysis. These values are given the true measure rather than US dollars, since the latter is unstable, being presently inflated beyond the, excuse me, I think that's one of the missing pages, because understand this is redacted material. So some of the stuff is out. But anyway, I want to show you the section where it talks about this is how they use the paper trail, or your checking accounts, your credit cards, etc. They build a dossier on everything, any movement that you make. That's why they want you to get them, not because they mean anything else other than that. They're really for data collection. Because what they don't want you to know is that all so-called bills that you get aren't really bills, they're statements on the account of the Global World Trust that easier for a banking cartel to buy the state of New York in, say, 20 years. Such a problem leans heavily upon the observation of data, of wartime espionage, and many types of psychological testing, but crude mathematical models, algorithms, etc., can be devised, if not to predict, at least to predetermine these events with maximum certainty. What does not exist by natural cooperation is thus enhanced by calculated compulsion. Human beings are machines, levers which may be grasped and turned, and there is little real difference between automating a society and automating a shoe factory. These derived values are valuable. It is necessary to use a current table of human values for computer analysis. All right, so I'll start back up here. So put all this in context. Such a problem leans heavily upon the observations and data of wartime espionage and many types of psychological testing, where crude mathematical models, algorithms, etc. can be devised, if not to predict, at least to predetermine these events with maximum certainty. What does not exist by natural cooperation is thus enhanced by calculated compulsion. Human beings are machines, levers which may be grasped and turned, and there is little real difference between automating a society and automating a shoe factory. These derived values are valuable. It is necessary to use a current table of human values for actually they're supposed to pay, not you, because you're under occupation. This is the reason why they won't tell you about 95.A, United States Code of Law, because the United States is a corporation and is occupying us. They're actually supposed to discharge and set off all of your debts because you're under occupation. And so they don't really send you bills because they're really already paid. So they send you statements of account. All right? And whatever you give them in the private commercial paper that they call Federal Reserve notes, that's accepted as dedonis or gift. Because it's really bookkeeping on your labor because it's not money. It's private commercial paper for registering the energy output that you make as a machine. They can see how much you move of your energy. That's why they must promote that it's money. Scholars know it's not money, but the chattel or cattle must believe that it's money. So when you see Europeans, lighting their cigars with 100 notes, and you be wondering why, because they already know it's worthless. It's just for control purposes. Because the masses aren't allowed to have money. You see? Because it's private commercial paper, it's for bookkeeping. This is why they won't teach people what money really is. Because you're actually cut off from your estate. And this is, again, why they don't want this information out, because the illusion that people have is what keeps their power. As long as people are in the illusion, they're in that false matrix. And this is where you get parents patre, where the corporate state claims to be your mother and father. Yeah, that's what that means. I mean, they own you. And this is where the marriage certificate was set up by the daughters of the American Revolution to claim the eggs in the fallopian tubes. And they think it is a divine agreement with the Lord in the heavens. No, it's the Lords of London. Yeah. So our people have been played on so many fronts that it's not even, to laugh at it would be, because it's just so miserable.
Is that why they say fruit of your womb when you're married? Is that why they say fruit of your womb when you get married?